Good news. Okay, so we're being recorded. We have a quite a large agenda this evening. One of the items I thought I'd put on the agenda hasn't made it. If it's allowable within the rules, and I think it's because we're a working group. I think I can see why it isn't. One of the items which is done as design codes, we haven't actually got anything to discuss on design codes. Can I suggest at that point we discuss exhibitions, because that is a very much a live topic, and I think we'd benefit from discussing it this evening. But without further ado, this is, I believe, the first meeting of the new council year, possibly the second, possibly something we forgot to do. But Adrian, we need to elect a new chair and vice chair.
Yes, that's right. We should have done it the day after the annual meeting, but we did forget.
Okay, super. So do we have any nominations for chair?
John, I propose John.
I second John.
Okay, great. Any other nominations? In that case, can we take a vote? Okay, thank you. I think everyone's voted positively. Thank you very much. And I hope to chair this meeting for the last year. And I hope it is the last year of the neighbourhood plan. Obviously, this time next year, we would hope to have a positive referendum. So that's great news. Second up is election of a vice chair. Do you have any nominations for vice chair of the group?
I'd like to nominate Jeff.
Happy to second.
Great. Can we vote on that?
Yeah, definitely. All good.
Jeff hasn't accepted, of course.
Thank you very much. Yes, no, John, unlike you, we'll see this out. We've started, so we'll
Yeah.
finish.
You're on the last lap now.
We're on the last lap. So
yeah, the last lap of a marathon, mind you.
Thank you for that, everybody.
yeah, so thank you for having investing your faith in us, Jeff and I, for another year as chair and vice chair. So thank you for that. Apologies for absence, Adrian.
Apologies received from Councillor Anthony Hook.
Thank you. And I understand Anthony has a competing meeting he has to attend, so that's absolutely understandable. Are there any declarations of interest for the agenda items this evening, which largely are site allocations, local green space allocations, and update on policy drafting? No. Okay, great. Thank you. And next up is to approve the minutes of the 18th of May. If you bear with me a second, I'll bring those up so we can see them. The minutes from 18th of May.
Good.
Please shout if you have any changes you'd like to make. Yeah, I think there was just one typo that I noticed. Any other comments?
Did in the local green spaces, I can't remember when this meeting was, but I don't know if we formally agreed in this meeting or not, but didn't we later commission Hannah to undertake to write a policy to cover amenity spaces?
To be honest, Chris, I'm not quite sure we have formally asked her to do that. I think we agreed that we would do it, but I personally haven't asked her to do that.
I thought you had, and I thought it had gone out via email If not,
Oh.
I need to take that action.
Actually, do you know what? I think I did. I'm sorry, my memory's a bit. I think I did. I'll chase it up with her. I haven't seen it yet. Put it like that. But yeah, that was one of her actions. There's also a space that straddles both local green space and site allocation that we're just awaiting some news on as well. And that is the site at behind Lionfield. And we're just waiting for some news from Swellborough Council on availability. So we'll probably touch on that this evening as well. I understand it may be available, in which case it will shift from one list to the other. Okay, just very briefly on the site allocation. It's on agenda for tonight, so I don't think we need to go through it in too much detail, or any detail at all. Summer exhibitions, we'll pick that up this evening. Local green spaces, Chris has mentioned. The other thing I just wanted to mention for those of you who aren't on the council, we did have an agreement. I can't recall where it is in here. Where is it? Yeah, did action for town council members briefing to be set. So we did have a briefing for town councillors. Obviously, those of you who are town councillors attended, but that meeting took place as well. So if there's no other
Could
comment,
I just ask on that? Did you achieve what you wanted to do with that meeting?
yeah, I think yes, I think so.
Yeah.
You know, the objective was to give councillors an update, and really just to reiterate the fact that this meeting is open for all to attend, and equally anything we do in this meeting, you know, we're happy to share. And one councillor following the meeting did ask me to share some draft materials with him, which I did do. But yeah, you know, I think its objective was to provide an update, but also just to make sure that people feel comfortable to ask questions at any point. I think the difficulty is that for a lot of the, as is typical at town council, full town council meeting, each working group or each committee provides a short update. And inevitably it's a 5-minute update, but of course we're covering a lot of ground very quickly. And I think this is where part of the problem arises, because we're actually going through quite a lot of work at pace. But I think a lot of it, Harold, was about reassurance that actually, despite the volume of work we're going through, we haven't made any decisions yet with respect to local green space designation, site allocation, etc. And I think we will start to coalesce those decisions probably after we have the exhibitions. So that was a very long-winded way of saying yes, I think it did.
Definitely was. Definitely good, very good.
Sorry, John, I'm muting myself. Could I just ask a brief supplementary? Do you think that's going to be a difficult stage when we get to it?
Getting agreement at town council?
Yeah.
No.
No, I don't, Harold. And part of the reason, we'll talk about it this evening when we look at
No.
the most controversial element, and we've discussed this at length previously, of neighbourhood planning is probably around site allocation. Looking at the sites that we can, I'm pretty confident that we can meet our required housing number, i.e. the 200 housing units, without doing anything overly controversial, i.e. largely 100% within the town's current built-up boundaries, and you know, in sites which have, I don't know if brownfield is quite the right term, but sites that have had previous built development of some sort or another. So, you know, we're not, I don't think we have any requirement to go into grade 1 agricultural land, you know, agricultural sites, which I think I'm pretty confident will take a sting out of a lot of it. But that's just my opinion. But I hope that's the case.
Thank you.
But who knows? Anything can happen. Okay, can I suggest then we accept the minutes? Can I recommend we accept the minutes?
Happy to second.
Yeah, happy.
Vote please.
Vote.
Great. Thank you, Adrian. I think that's carried to accept the minutes. Okay. So going back to our agenda for this evening. Next up is really a discussion point, and it's a discussion point on exhibitions. And I'll just kick us off in terms of doing that. When we thought lockdown was going to be lifted in this week, in fact, we had provisionally held some time in town hall to have an exhibition, and the purpose of that exhibition, it's not a formal consultation, just to be clear, but it's really just an opportunity to update members of the public on the progress we've made on the plan, and invite comment on what we've done to date. Obviously, because of the COVID lockdown extension, we've pushed that back. So we're now holding provisionally 2 dates in the diary. One of them is, and Adrian, I apologize because I thought I'd put it in my calendar. I think it's the 29th.
Yeah, 29th, 30th and 31st of July. And then the following weekend.
5th, 6th, 7th of August.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically the first the last weekend of July, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then the first weekend of August, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday again. And I think what we'd agreed previously is that we wouldn't hold it during the week, given other people's, the team's commitments to work and other practical things like that. But we would hold it over the weekends and on Fridays as well. So that's the plan. It's not that long away. It's probably 4 or 5 weeks to the first weekend. And really, I think it would be good just to have an open discussion this evening on what we'd like to do during that. Well, firstly, I suppose the question is, 1, do we still want to do it? And 2, if we do it, what do we want to include on it? So I'll kind of throw the floor open.
Sorry, John, could you give me the dates again?
Yeah, so the first date was we're holding the dates 29th of July to the 31st, sorry, 29th to the 31st of July, and the 5th to the 7th of August.
Well, for what it's worth, I don't see that we can avoid holding some more exhibitions. I think it's a long time since we held one, and a lot's been done. And I think we've got lots of material in the sense that we can bring out bits of the design code and so on. I also think that we need to do it if we're going to do anything with the views, which we know is a potential way of ensuring that we don't lose some of the important historic and natural heritage of the town. And we do need to have an exhibition for that purpose. So I think we have to do it, and we have lots of material.
John, I think I agree with that, because I think all the contributions everybody's making along the way, it gives us the means to demonstrate that we've listened and the contributions of the broader consensus view has been taken into account.
Yeah.
And it also gives us the opportunity, if we're covering the time slots on those 2 weekends between us, that we're there to directly answer the questions that specific people have. We've had queries about site allocations with the broad net that we cast originally, that has confused some, but we've got the opportunity to clarify that and explain where we're going with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. I think it's, in terms of materials, I think we have, and we'll talk about it this evening, in 6 weeks' time, which essentially is what it is, we should have come to a preliminary conclusions on the site allocations. We should have come to a preliminary conclusion on the green space allocations or the green space designations. Because frankly, if we haven't done it by the end of July, we're way behind time. And then of course there's views as well. And I think those three things are very visual. I think the thing that we probably, and again, just my opinion, I'm not quite sure we'll have the policies complete by then. But certainly those two big chunks of local green space and site allocations. And the things, you know, we can take, we need photographs of them anyway. We need photographs of the sites. We need photographs of the local green spaces, which I think we have some of those already. We need photographs of views. So it could actually make it for quite an engaging exhibition, I would have thought.
Yep.
Chris?
Sorry, I'll just throw my penny's worth in as an observer. From the last exhibitions, I mean, I found them really useful, both from people getting to know what was going on, but also to understand people's views. And I think if there's so many things that people can do now, in the sense of people can go to other exhibitions and events and concerts and things. And I think this is quite a crucial thing. It's more important than some of the things that you're actually allowed to do within the rules now. And I think, personally, I'll be very happy to be involved and help again, because I found that incredibly useful. Not, as I say, not only for me to understand more, but I think just to talk to people, and a lot of people came in with a very particular kind of mindset. I'm going to complain about the development, but once they start to understand, you talk to them, they kind of go away with sort of the idea of what's been trying to be achieved. So I personally think it was a really good thing. So I think it sounds really good.
Right.
Yeah. Chris, do you think that the message is getting through that saying no to new development is an effective way forward, and that we've really got to shape this and do the best we can as citizens of this town in good faith to try and influence the outcome? Do you think the message is getting through?
I think when you talk to people, it does, because I think you can explain this is a local way of us shaping how Faversham should be in the future. And I think people then understand that we're not in control of the bigger picture, and we can't just put a fence around Faversham and stop development happening, but we're actually trying to make the best of the situation we've got. And I think people understand that. I think as been said, I suppose time goes on, and then people kind of focus on what's in the media and what's been said in the broader thing. So the more kind of punctuations you have with exhibitions and ways you can kind of remind people what's been done, I think people do understand. But it's just, there's a lot going on at once, and I think that kind of does make it complicated. But I got the impression that people really did start to get why we're doing it. That was my perception of it.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Just practically, in terms of pulling it together, like I said, over the next 6 weeks are going to be relatively busy, because I think everyone's going to leave with some homework tonight. But I suppose practically, last time what we did, which made the load a lot lighter, was we obviously engaged the volunteer group with doing it. I think the challenge this time is the volunteer group haven't necessarily, or certainly all the volunteer group haven't necessarily been involved in things like site assessments and so on. But I'd be keen to understand how you think we should approach it, or who should do it, or when we do it. Chris?
So a couple of things in terms of logistics. I've still got homework from the last couple of meetings that I'm doing, but more realistically, I won't get to make the second weekend. I'll be away. So just in terms of the dates, you've got the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and the Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Is that right?
Yes.
Two weekends. I could probably help on the Thursday or the Friday of the week before, but and I'm happy to do so. In terms of ideas and suggestions on what we do, my very simplistically, I wonder if we can't, just as we had in the last one, we had the panels up for the various different things we were asking them to understand. why can't we have a panel for policies? Is it that simple? Or policies and sites, or policies and green spaces, or policy sites and green spaces? But I mean, those are the three key things to try and get people on board, aren't they?
Because we have got to consult on the local green spaces still, haven't we, Chris?
Yeah, but isn't that part of the consultation? Isn't that part of the wider consultation?
I thought we had to do one now. The 3-week one now.
I don't see how these two things are in conflict, Adrian.
No, I'm just saying that might be a way to do it at the
Well, no, I think you crack on and do it in the standard way so that everybody knows it's been done. But what was really powerful was those green and red stickers, and I think particularly for the views that will be important. I think where I am, Chris, is that we should focus on the more visual material for the exhibition, and maybe have a list of what's in the policies, and then put the policy up for people to look at. It's an awful lot of words, whichever way you look at it.
But I think it's a good point that Harold makes, John, that people can relate to things like views and so on, and they can have an opinion of their own. And the way that we had the like planning for real type stickers and post-its and things when we've done the previous exhibitions, to carry that approach forward, I think would give people the opportunity to express their feelings, really.
Can I ask a question then, and perhaps I've missed the essential part of this debate? What are we trying to achieve with those exhibitions? Because if we're trying to get people on board on what we're going to deliver, what we're not really asking for.
No, we're not.
Whether they want to debate any qualitative views or anything, are we?
No, but Chris, but to get the view, to be able to use the views to control development so that we don't lose those views, we need to get public support that those views are important to them. And similarly, we need to get public support for the green spaces that we're choosing to protect. And none of that have we done. I mean, I see it as part of winning support for the things which are going to get within Faversham, and reminding people that the neighbourhood plan is about the centre of town. It's not about the awful things which are happening around it. And I think that is the message we need to keep getting out there. And I just worry that if we put the policies out, it's very hard to imagine how people are going to look at and comment on those policies. I think it's better to publish the policies with some questions and get the feedback on the internet.
Yeah, I think just on it, Chris, because you do really raise a really important point, because this is not a formal consultation step, and actually arguably it's not a consultation at all. It's a way of, you know, and it's probably a crude term to use, but it's a way of us selling what we've done, right? And actually describing, explaining the logic of our choices. So look, to use the local green space as an example, you know, we're not doing a poll. What local green spaces do you want? Because what we have to explain is, like, there's set criteria. So some of the spaces that you and I maybe wanted don't qualify. So this is why we have selected the ones we've selected. So I think it's more about explaining and describing the process and the decisions, rather than a poll or a kind of feedback on.
So if that's the case, then putting a bunch of views up that we want people to agree that we should be protecting, if we're not really going to get their views and opinions, if it's an exhibition to broadcast, we won't capture the type of feedback that Harold thinks we ought to anyway.
Chris, what I had in mind was what we did with the, don't know quite how to describe it, when we had those pictures of different kinds of buildings and we got the red and green spots. I was thinking
that's a consultation exercise in which we're trying to gain feedback on something. We're not trying to gain feedback anymore, are we?
Well, I think we still need to on the views.
You know, I think I'm hearing what Chris is saying, actually, but I think, Harold, we've not really consulted on the views, not, we're talking views, visual views, like going down Brent Road and looking out at the creek opening up in front of us, the creek basin and so on. We've all got these views and ideas that's something that you could put the spots on. But I think we have consulted down the line, and we're demonstrating where we've engaged, listened and built the consensus and the rationale for where we are. How we do that with the minimum number of words we'll need to talk about later. But we have done some specific points, mentioned the houses, the types of house and so on that were included in the ACOM document. That really we've picked up things that public have said to us and built them in where they've been practical and realistic to do so. So I think it's progressing along a line, but we haven't done the views before, but we've done everything else, and we don't want to backtrack on that because we've already done it. And otherwise Hannah will be rewriting policies and we'll be giving the wrong message out that we'll be changing them again after we've done what reflects the views that we've received so far. Harold, what do you think?
I think I might be talking too much, but I mean, my view is if we are going to find that we've got major problems either the green spaces or if we're ready, John, the sites, I'd rather find out now than in the context of the referendum debate.
And I think that's exactly what we'll get, Harold. You know, we'll get that feedback.
And I think that's why it's critically important to do it.
And it's just about helping people understand. It's us, you know. We're checking the temperature of what we're doing, and people are going, well, actually, I like it or I don't like it. We're not asking for them to say, you know, list the green space and say which ones do you like. Saying these are the ones we intend to allocate. What do you think?
Yeah. And
they'll say, well, actually, why did you not allocate that? And say, well, because it doesn't meet the criteria. So the explanation bit is
critical.
It's critical. And I think that's why, in a sense, having people who are in the steering group, and I think it's great to have other people as well. So, you know, Chris and other councillors, very welcome their input. But I think because it's the first question, isn't it? Well, why did you not do this or why did you not do that? You say, well, actually, it's because these are the constraints we have to work with. And I think the physical views is a tricky one, and I haven't quite got my head around how we do that yet. But I think for green spaces and site allocations, we essentially propose what we're going to propose and explain why we chose the sites we chose.
John, just on that, just to help the debate, I suppose, I went round with Jonathan Carey, and I think we've got the set of views which we might want to use. I think we then need as a group to decide which ones. Yeah. But I do think we need to do a similar kind of process that we have with the green spaces. You know, these are the views we think are really important to Faversham. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that doesn't cut across anything that we've done before.
I don't think it does. No.
No.
Hannah's wanted to get in.
Sorry, Hannah.
Okay, I think one of the kind of main things we said right from the very beginning of establishing neighbourhood plan is that we wanted, and it was crucial to bring the public with us on what we were doing. And I think that, you know, I hear what Chris is saying about, you know, the outcomes of the I can't even remember the word for them in my brain. Come on, please, someone help me here. The exhibitions, there we go. One of the points of the exhibitions, and you know, I understand Chris's point around the fact that we need to look at the outcomes of that and what the purpose of it is. But I think one of the core purposes of any exhibition is part of that, bringing the public with us before we get to a referendum stage. So I think they're just useful because, you know, we're engaging with people around the process, and I think that's almost, you know, one of the really key aspects of them.
Chris?
So people probably miss my point in the sense that it feels reasonable to me to talk about a journey that we've been on and say, we did these exhibitions before, this is the feedback we got, and this is the output that we've produced as a consequence of that. So exhibition 1 tested these things, you said this is the outcome. That makes perfect sense to me and is a really good engagement point. I guess, and sorry to be semantic about this, and after this I will hold my peace, frankly, but I don't think we're at a point, say for potentially a local green space consultation, which I don't think we have to do via exhibition. There are other methods that we could do that, and frankly probably should. So, say for that, I don't think we're really, and if you all disagree with me, I'm happy to go with you. I don't think we're really inviting comment now. That doesn't mean I don't want to take people with us, but I don't want to have a 3rd, 4th, 5th round of rehashing, changing and updating. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm in a minority of one, because in some senses we've done a lot of that engagement, we've done the surveys, we've done the exhibitions, we can demonstrate what people have said, and we can demonstrate how our policies, our site selections, how those have been in response to public engagement, and tell them what they've told us and how we've reacted to that. That feels powerful and meaningful.
Yeah.
We're not asking them to change the script again.
And John, I really agree with what Chris is saying, because otherwise we're going to tie ourselves in knots.
Yeah.
And we've got to have a systematic process where we're working through. We've said we haven't done views before, but Hannah, do you think that the way that we're talking now, that we've listened, this is what you told us, this is what we've done, that we've got a progression through this now, and that people will be able to see that they've been listened to, and we built the consensus of the views, like from the surveys, from the spots that we did at previous exhibitions, so we can show the journey that we've got to where we are, rather than going back and changing it. Is that what you're saying, Chris?
I agree with that. That's fine.
So what I've written down, which Chris said, and we should put it in the minutes because I think it's really helpful, is actually you have exhibitions for a number of reasons. We held exhibitions to generate ideas. We held exhibitions to consult. This is about this is an educational exhibition, and I think that the kind of structure you suggest, Chris, is like we asked, you told us, and we did. We can actually just replicate that. When it comes to green spaces, we asked you to nominate sites which are important to you, blah, blah, blah. This is what you told us, and we can add a bit around, and these are the rules and regulations and constraints we had to follow. And these are the outputs. So it's educational, and it takes that.
And similarly, certain parts of the policies we can draw out. And to Harold, to your point about this is all about the town centre, we can say, we asked you in surveys, the resident survey, what do you like about Faversham? And we can tease out the theme that it said about our town centre, historic leanings, marketplace. We can pull out that kind of word cloud for the most meaningful things. And we can then say beneath it, and these are our policies about our town centres that respond to that survey, that says, residential things above shops, but shops at a certain level. We could say why that's a response to that resident survey or an exhibition. Do you get me, Harold? Does that make sense?
I do get you, Chris, but I have two concerns about it. That sounds like an awful lot of work to do that. And maybe it does have to be done, but it is an awful lot of work. And I don't think this group's got the capacity to do it. And I also think that, it's interesting that Hannah Barter has started to use the word clouds, which is a good idea, I think, in terms of communicating it in an easy way that doesn't need paragraphs of writing. I guess I don't disagree with what you're saying, Chris, but I see the exhibition as being a bit of a, we asked you, you told us this, we went and did this, and this is the outcome.
Yeah.
And it's part of an education process. It's part of winning the argument.
Yeah.
And if we don't do it, the people are going to just say, well, you didn't bother to consult us, and we'll get a backlash we don't need. But I'm not averse to doing something around the policies. I just don't think we can do that with all of them. I also think, Chris, that this is you, Chris Williams. I really think we need the councillors to come out for this, because we need them to understand what's going on. In the end, they are going to have to argue for it, and they're going to have to support it or not in the town council. And it does worry me, if we can't carry the town council, then it really is difficult.
What we could
You
do
will. I think you will.
to that end, you know, if we've got potentially 6 days, we don't have to open on Thursdays if we don't have the capacity
Yeah.
to do it. But we could, on the opening Thursday, for instance, or the opening Friday night, invite all the councillors along and take them through it. You know, where it's purely just open, especially for councillors.
I would try and do it on the Thursday night, Chris, when
Thursday,
John, when
yeah.
it's set up,
Yeah.
and
The opening
before we
Thursday,
open.
yeah.
Thursday councillors, yeah.
Can I make one more suggestion then, Harold, to your point about not doing all the policy? Can we then just pick 3 themes, the 3 most important themes of the whole neighbourhood policy that we think will be contentious, that we want to fight around? And that could be town centre, it could be creek and surroundings, it could be sites, it could be local.
Chris, I completely agree. We just can't do it all. That's all I'm saying. I think we can do a bit of it, but not all. And we can have drafts if we're ready. We can have drafts there for people to read and send us comments on if they want. But I mean, the great thing about consultations, as we'll find out over the town gates, is that you don't really know what the people told you, what people said, because you only know what the person running the consultation tells you the people said, don't you? I mean, it's a pretty poor process, really.
I think it will be important to make the distinction and reinforce again, as simply as we possibly can, the distinction between the local plan and the neighbourhood plan, because we don't want any confusion there.
No, we don't.
We've got this strategic allocation that Swale have done, which is outside our remit, but as a result of them doing that allocation, we can shape where development can go and where it can't with our 200 houses to top it up. And that shouldn't be a difficult thing to do, to make the distinction between the 2 plans right at the outset. And this is what you told us for the neighbourhood plan, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think and that's why I think doing the site allocation as part of this exhibition is really important, because it will be the most controversial bit. And also it'll be very clear when you come in there that we're talking about 200 houses, not 3,500. And it's not saying whether we support 3,500 or don't support 3,500. It's simply drawing the distinction that that's a different matter. It's not our matter. Our neighbourhood plan matter is, you know, this relatively modest number of houses and where we put them.
Yeah.
And why we're putting them where we're putting them. Can I suggest, and I think local green spaces, I think, is a nice thing to do. It's nice and visual. It's important. And I think equally, there's a bit of explaining to do why some things aren't local green spaces as much as those which are. In terms of the policy, I like the idea of picking 2 or 3 policy areas, and I'm not picking on it because it is what it is, but some like flooding's possibly less interesting to some people than Faversham Creek, which I know is eternally controversial, but I think it would be really good to have something on Faversham Creek. And again, you know, I'm quite confident that we're not proposing anything which is terribly controversial. You know, we have David Melville inputting into it, and David is very much wired into those kind of creek organizations. So I'm pretty confident, you know, we're going in the right direction.
John, if I may just put it on the table, I think the other thing we really should do for our own sakes is to have that list of things which we will be suggesting to the town council should go into the town plan, to pick up those things we've been firmly told are not planning matters. I think we must have that as a big part of it, just to assuage people's concerns that we've not listened on those issues. And we have listened, but we can't do it through the plan. I think we just must be really clear about that.
Just to reinforce that, I think because between us, we've got an overall vision that we can't put into policies, but the policies deliver as far against that vision as possible, but you can see the direction of travel by looking at that vision. And it gives a logic and a rationale for moving the way that we're going with that. And I think that is really important point.
So we could have a list of the policy areas, which is literally, you know, a 1 to 15 or whatever it is list. We could pick out 3 and go into more detail. This is what you told us. This is what we asked. This is what you told us. This is what we've done. And then we could have a way of capturing the additional areas of importance, but not captured within the neighbourhood plan. And we could build a list of those.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we've got 3 things, right? We've got policy, so 4 things: views, policy, LGS, and site allocation. I'm happy to work up the site allocation stuff because I'm working on it. And I think, Chris, you're working on LGS, aren't you?
Yeah, I didn't start off out accepting it, but it appears like I am. So yeah, I think I can do some stuff around that.
You were probably not at a meeting, Chris, and it was given to you when you're absent.
Yeah. I stood still when everyone stood backwards, I think.
John, can I just check with you on the site allocations, because that isn't just going to be news for the public; it's going to be news for the landowners.
Yes.
I don't know. I genuinely don't. I'm just flagging up. There's a potential really big problem there.
So this is the next agenda topic, which we'll spend a lot of time on. But yeah, let's discuss that.
I mean, interestingly, is site allocations with one we really need to lead with, in the sense that, you know, we've accepted 200 houses in the scheme of Faversham's building. It's a pimple on the arm, and yet something that can cause and raise loads of hassle. Is the stuff we want to talk about, is the proactive stuff. I don't know. It's just.
I think the problem, Chris, if we do that, and I'm very tempted for the same reasons, but if we do that, people are just going to think we're hiding from them.
Okay. Yeah, understood.
That would be my concern.
Happy to be true.
But similarly, I think we need to discover what the legalities are about how the landowners need to be told, John.
Yeah.
It's a technical question at one level, because at some point they're going to find out and be cross.
Yes. Well, no, we do need to, well, especially we need to respond to those who've nominated sites, right?
Yeah.
Some people, some landowners, a lot of them are SLA sites. I don't think it's necessary, but certainly there's a swathe of sites which are actually nominated by landowners or their agents, and they'll need to be told the outcome.
Yeah.
So, Harold, would you be happy to take some lead on views for the?
I am, if Adrian's happy to work with me on it a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a yes.
Quite technical, isn't it? It's going to be our problem with the views, but I'm happy to help with you, Harold.
Well, I think there's 2 stages to it. The one is we need to get people's assessment of how important the views are, and you and I could just have a look at them and see what you and I think. Some of them are important, but they're not actually threatened because the site allocations don't affect them. And I think then once we've done that and we know which ones we've got public support for, then the technical bit really comes in. But for the exhibition, I don't think they need to be that brilliant technically. We just need to get them up. What I've realized is a dreadful mistake and absolutely foreseeable was it going around yesterday or whenever it was, Sunday, with Jonathan to do it. There's been an awful lot of growth in the last 3 weeks. And luckily, Adrian, you'll be pleased to know I have managed to track down those photographs which Tim took. So we do now have them back again. But you couldn't see what Tim took photographs of. Jonathan and I wrote yesterday, and that's just been a mistake. But by the time the winter comes, we're going to get those views in a very different context.
Yeah.
It's foolish, really, because one ought to be able to predict that there'd be a lot of greenery around after a lot of rain and a lot of heat.
I know. Yeah.
It's like a jungle out there, isn't it?
It does.
Adrian, just a very practical question. When will the works be completed in the ground floor of a town hall, sufficient that we could go in there without tripping over?
But Adam did say it would be usable airspace from the 7th, so I think It should
Just
be.
to be, can I be clear on the VIC space then, John? It's absolutely certain by the time we come out of lockdown that anything we're doing will be within the VIC space, and we, at the very worst, we'll put a tarpaulin across as it's closed off. So it really doesn't make any.
No,
Indeed, by then the shutters might be up, but at the very
Yeah.
worst, we will make it.
all in
Cool. So
contained.
Where I'm kind of going with this is what we did last time, which I thought was actually very, very helpful, is we actually physically went there. We looked at
Yes,
the
we
pit, we saw how many walls we had, and just I think we haven't talked about policy, but I think several people could work on that one actually. But if it makes sense and people are willing to do it, I'm quite happy to do it. Would be sometime in early July. If maybe Adrian could find a date for us, would be to have a meeting, and not like I said, not everyone has to attend it if they can't or don't want to, but have a meeting there on site, have a look at it, and actually work out what we need to do for the
Great
exercise.
stuff. Good idea.
I agree, and I'd like to be there, John.
Yeah. Yeah, good
Well,
idea.
everyone will be invited. So, Adrian, if generally people are happy with that idea,
Okay.
we see if we find a date. Where are we? We're kind of next week's the last week of June, isn't it? So I'd suggest we probably don't want to leave it more than sometime over the week of the 5th of July, because then we'll still need another couple of weeks to do our bit.
Okay.
And I presume an evening suits most people.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
You guys actually work, so we've got to try and fit in with you so that you can actually keep the day job moving as well.
That's it. We've got to keep eating.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Can we end that conversation there on exhibitions? I think I'd like to think we've all got alignment. It's an educational meeting. I think we've got a direction around what we want to do with it, and we'll meet in a couple of weeks' time to actually start formulating the content.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So the next agenda item is site allocation, and I will screen share a couple of different things with you. So bear with me a second, because I think to work out how I can do this. Yeah, I can do this. So this, hopefully what you can see is a long list of things. There are these are site assessment forms. There's a summary form in there, and there's also an instruction form, which I'll go into more detail. But as you can see, for not every single site, but nearly every single site that is either came forward as a neighbourhood plan nomination, came forward as a previous SLA nomination, or came forward as from the Creek neighbourhood plan, we now have a outline assessment form. So you can see there's a lot of them, and we were ably supported in doing that by Hannah Barter and her team. So they've done a fair amount of work on it, but quite rightly so, they're not completed. And what we need to do collectively over the next 6 weeks, essentially, is do our best to complete these forms. So I'll take you through a number of things and explain how it's working. So actually, we missed something off the agenda. I'll come back to it. It's terms of reference. I think excuse me, we did miss that, but we'll come back to it. Right. So let me share this with you. Now this is I don't know if this smacks of jumping to conclusion before you've completed the exercise, but I would reiterate this is draft. Okay, before anyone says but based on, let me explain this to you. So this is site assessment overview, and these are all the sites that have been assessed. So they're coded as followed. AECOM assessed them, right? So we've got the AECOM assessments. They're still making a few adjustments to it because inevitably, and Adrian knows this because she's been working on it, you get it, there's always a few small errors, a few things need to be changed, but their RAG assessment isn't going to change dramatically. There are a couple of exceptions, which we'll talk about. What they've done is they've coded them as green, amber, or red. And the way it works is green means this site technically is available and technically it's developable without any serious mitigation. So land at Perry Court Farm and land at Perry Court Farmhouse, both of which actually, interestingly, I think have current planning applications on, or at least one of them has, because it's been discussed. What it means is technically they can be built. Amber means they could proceed with mitigation. So we know they're available. However, there may be some individual constraints within those sites that need to be considered before it can be developed. And that can be either access, it could be something like flood risk, it could be something like presence of heritage assets. So they can be developed, but we're going to have to put in some mitigations for it. And then red is that they largely aren't available. So these could change, right? So land at Flood Lane, owned by Swillborough Council, isn't available, can't develop it. Rear of Landfill Wallers Road, currently, and I say currently, we've had no indication from Swell that it's available, but if it changes, it'll change, etc., etc., etc. So these could change. That's based on availability. These assessments here, Town Council assessment June 2021. This is a, sorry, am I missing some? Where we go? No, right. So these are sites which on the preliminary look, which we'll go into on these sheets, we've recoded them green, amber, or red. I'll go through the red ones first because it's probably easiest to do. So these are sites which, for a variety of reasons, sometimes because they're predominantly outside the neighbourhood plan area, because they're a strategic site allocation in the adopted plan, or a strategic site allocation in the emerging plan. They're red, not because we agree or disagree or anything with them. Basically, we can't allocate them because either someone else is allocating them or we don't want to allocate them, or they're not available. The green sites are sites which we think are developable, even if they require mitigation. And the amber sites are sites we think are developable again, but they're deprioritized, so they could become green if we want. And just to run through them very, very quickly, like I said, this isn't finalized. So land at New Creek Road is Fentimans Yard. I think we probably better know it as. Abbey Street and Belvedere Road, that is the site of Frank and Whittam and around Creek Creative, those buildings at the back on Belvedere Road. Kill and Osborne Court, Beaumont Davy, Railway Yard, Chaff House, which is on Conduit Street, Bridge Road, former White Horse Car Park, rear access land to Market Inn, BMM Weston, 4 sites, Ordnance Wharf, former Coach Depot, which is currently in the Faversham Creek Neighbourhood Plan, and Swan Quay. If all those sites were to come forward, and if they remain green, when we do our final assessment on them, we can meet over 200 houses on those green sites. In fact, we probably don't need to bring all of them forward because it would be over 200, but we've got our 200. And as you can see, all those sites, or none of those sites, so there's a couple of exceptions. So Lady Den Farm is currently surrounded by housing sites, and it's allocated. It's a previous well, it's a farm buildings, as the name suggests, and all the rest of them have had some building on them previously or have existing buildings on them. So that's the sense of direction. Then any kind of observations, comments, questions, Chris?
John, on the Queen Court one below, yeah, it's still further south. keep going. Next line.
Green Court, number 20.
25, 25 Queen Court Farmyard.
Yeah, that's the one that we visited together, wasn't it?
Correct. So it's red.
Yeah, it's red. Hannah, I did talk that through briefly with Hannah Barter, and she suggested, I think, that the comments made by Ray,
Yeah.
if this goes out for consultation or whatever it does, he needs to re-provide those comments back to us directly.
Right.
And do you remember this, Adrienne? Do you remember the conversation? She basically said that because the specific policies or whatever I can't remember what they're called, the historic views that they're protecting, it protects by not having any building on it. That policy is unadopted. The conservation policies are unadopted. I can't remember what the exact wording for it is, and unfortunately I haven't got it in front of me. In any event, the important point is for Ray to let us know his thoughts, which he's already done to Swale, he's already done through the Faversham Society through to Swale. He needs to provide those thoughts, just cut and paste them into an email, send it back to us directly. But I think he has to do that in some kind of consultation engagement.
Yeah. And I think that what I'd say is, Chris, some of these which are red. So let's talk about Queen Court Farmyard, because we're talking about it. It's adjacent to an AQMA. It's adjacent to listed buildings. It has no current existing access, etc., etc. So I think the point being, yes, I know what I was going to say. It's also very far away from amenities, railway station, etc., etc. So none of the ones which are red on one thing alone. It's a cumulative effect, and actually, ultimately, the other way of thinking about it is some of these sites are clearly developable with mitigations. It's just the fact that actually we have to find 200 houses, and we have got better sites. I think that's what it comes down to as well. So I think it's an important message. It doesn't mean, clearly these sites have come forward, and these sites are in this, some of the strategic, that one, for instance, Bisingwood Primary School, Hasbrook Road. Again, it's developable, but we've got better sites. I think that's an important message.
I think that needs to be the primary message, John.
Yeah.
And the other thing we need to remember is at some point we've got to get these site assessments to Heritage England.
Yeah.
We don't want to make the mistake they made with the last Creek Neighbourhood plan.
Yeah.
Leaving it till too late at the last minute, and then finally you've got a problem.
Yes. Yeah. So let me share an example of one of these with you.
While you're doing that, John, are we prioritising our brownfield to demonstrate we've exhausted the brownfield sites that we've got in the town before we move on to more sensitive sites? You're
absolutely spot on. So Jeff, because one of the things that came clear, and this is we asked, you told us we did. Yeah. It's quite clear in the feedback that people's preference is to develop on brownfield sites, and we are following the preferences. And I think, again, that's why it's difficult to do it this evening. But these are the messages that we have to make sure we're articulating come the end of July and the start of August. Why did you choose site A over site B? Yeah. 1, because you told us. 2, because we've got better sites. 3, because and actually it's very important that we have that down pat consistently. Yeah. We're communicating why these sites were chosen and why other sites weren't chosen. Yeah. So let me share just one of the forms, because this is where it's choosing random, no idea which one it is. Yeah, so it's probably not a great example, but these are the neighbourhood plan site assessment forms. So these are the forms that were out for consultation and the forms that were agreed. Essentially, we made a couple of, like 3 or 4 minor changes based on feedback during the consultation exercise. And what Hannah Barter and team have done is they've filled in everything they can fill in based on predominantly the ACOM work. So they've taken a lot of information from ACOM and then they've looked up some additional work. But as you see, when we go through this, there's still a lot of blanks, and the blanks are for us to fill in.
But John, I think there are several sites that contribute to the head of the creek that Harold's been championing, Red TS Hazard and the Town Key, and they're independent owners in some places. And then we need to make sure that we're joined up, and we've got that understanding that they are developing the whole rather than lots of isolated little pockets.
Yeah, and I think there's, you know, there's 2 sort of separate things going on in a sense, because these site allocations, and maybe we should call them housing allocations. These are our sites for housing. On the red list, for instance, there was Iron Wharf and Upper Brents Industrial Estate. All we're saying is they're not suitable for housing. It doesn't mean we don't think they're important or we shouldn't say something about them. So you're absolutely right, Jeff. We'll go back to individual landowners and say, you know, we will allocate your site and it may be suitable for some additional housing. However, you're still subject to a group of policies for that particular area you're in.
Yeah.
So just very, very quickly, they're filled it. I've had a look at these, and to be honest, there's some stuff which is incorrect in some of them, but that's fine. But I think what the intention to do is to divide these up, and then the person who gets allocated 7, 8 of these is to go through them, fill in the blanks as best you can, and just sense check that the stuff which is in here is correct. Actually, so that one doesn't seem right to me. It probably is right, but
John, I'm wondering if that is, I'm sorry to do this, but I'm wondering if that, for example, this one on the one you're looking at now,
yeah,
really the best person to look at all of them in relation to that bit is actually Matthew.
Matthew, yeah.
And I wonder whether we shouldn't divide it up that way, John, just for, although it means everybody looking at all of them.
Yeah, well, we could do that, Harold. You know, I haven't got any strong view on it. I think we just need to make sure there's many eyes on it, because as you can see, this took to get these where they're at, which is still imperfect, took 3 days, 2 people working on it, 8-hour days, and I don't think any single one of us has that much capacity. So I think it's, if that's the way to go, Harold, I'm really quite happy to do it.
I think it's the only way to be sure, because otherwise people are going to be individually phoning up Matthew and saying, what do you think? It would be quicker for him to just go through all of them and we say, please look at these elements.
It's good.
Yeah,
I think that's a logical.
Yes,
way to do it.
I think it'll be less work in the end, although it won't feel like that at the beginning.
so the irony is this one's pretty much filled in. I'm going to pick a different one because it's bloody typical. The one you pick is, you know, virtually completed. Hold on. Let's try this one, see if it's any different. Yeah, so I like I said, I've just these are as they've come straight from Hannah Barter. but some of this stuff is clearly incorrect, right? This is Beaumont Davy Close off Ashford Road. Is land classified as best and most versatile agricultural land? Yes, grade 1. It's clearly not grade 1 agricultural land. So there are errors in here, again, that need checked. But then some of it, a lot of it's correct, right? So I think as well as the blanks, and again, this one's largely filled in, but some of them, none of this is filled in. So I think it requires sense checking, completion across the team. And here's an example, and some of the things can't be, you know, as a paper exercise that can complete. Could development of the site result in a public gain, accessibility, green space, connecting footpaths, cycle paths, etc. So we have a lot of these to fill in. And as you say, Harold, if you think circulating amongst larger groups a way to go, I'm happy to do that. I don't know if there's any other thoughts on that, about how we approach it.
No, I think that's a better way to do it, John, because there'll be some of the things we don't know whether they're incorrect or correct, whereas others will look at it instantly and recognise what needs to be corrected on the environment or whatever it may be.
John, I think there is another way of doing it. Sorry, Jeff, just taking that point on. The other way to do it, I've just done it with, as it happens with Matthew and Jonathan. We've gone through a long document, took 45 minutes, but basically we just looked at those things which, you know, just very quickly on shared screen, just going through it and doing it. And in a way, I mean, the key informants would probably be natural heritage. We might want to involve the ward councillors, I guess, on some of the sites we don't know very well, and 2 people on the built heritage, which would cover most of it.
Yeah.
I mean, they won't have the flood risk wrong because they've done that off the flood risk maps.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's those things which require local knowledge which are a problem.
Okay. Well, we've got about 50 of these forms. I think to go through it on a call would take.
We can't do 50 at once, but you could do 15, and.
Yeah. I'm happy to do that. Is there any preference?
I think we have to see what the key informants are willing to do, don't we?
Yeah. I think the other thing we could do is we could circulate, you know, if we saying we've got 6 weeks, we could circulate 10 a week.
Yeah, that would make it a lot easier.
And it suddenly becomes a less onerous task, I think.
But I think just divvying up between us won't resolve it,
Yeah.
John, because we don't have the right expertise.
That, but yeah. And there's been a lot of goodwill donated by the volunteers. We want to make sure that we take them with us, and they can, all their good work isn't undermined by some of our judgments that may not be as accurate as they could be.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So on that basis, what is the best way to do it? Is it to put it on a SharePoint share file type thing, and people can go into it?
Just set up a Google Drive.
Or Google Drive? That's the same thing, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Share
Chris,
file.
can I just ask you, when you met with Jonathan, with Ray, sorry, did you go through the site stuff, or were you looking at policies?
Primarily policies. I've still got the second half of it to do, actually. So I've still got another hour or 2 to spend with him. But all we've done so far is just policies. That's all we're planning to do.
Okay. So
John, I think the reality for me is if we're going to go this route, I'm probably going to have to get Jonathan and Ray together and print the forms off and physically go through them.
yeah. I think there's no way of cutting it. It's a huge amount of work, right? You know, but
If I could be absolved from any other work apart from doing that, I'd be grateful if I'm going to do that lot.
Yeah.
Obviously, it doesn't apply to all the sites either, does it? I mean,
Well,
you know.
Like the bottom line is, you know, if you look at the list we started with, a lot of these sites were, we've got no interest in taking forward, and they're red anyway. So actually, I think there is a effort reward, effort risk element to this.
Yeah.
And as Chris picked out one particular, which is Queen Court Farmyard, and let's be honest, I know the owner has a pre-app on that. What that means is, realistically, it's going to be getting our ducks in a row and making sure that it's filled in correctly is going to be a lot more important than filling in one for a landowner who hasn't even made it available, right? So I think there's probably a set of them that we really need to be at top of our game. And some, as you said, we run through them quickly. So maybe the activity for me is to identify those ones which are important, those ones which are less so, and we focus on the ones which are important. Was that another way of approaching it?
That seems logical. What you must do, what you could do, or should do, and what you could do, so that we work
Yeah.
progressively through them to get to where we are. But like we said, with the brownfield and then the others that follow on that we're giving green lights to, then we must prioritize them first, mustn't we?
Yeah.
What's your deadline on this, John? Just so as I can think about when I can actually.
Well, what I'd like, and it goes back to our earlier discussion. What I'd like is to present our selection at the end of July at our, which is in 6 weeks' time, at our and actually have that list and say we evaluated 50 sites, and here are 8 that we think are suitable for development and suitable for allocation, for the following reasons, and a bit like the policies we discussed earlier. We don't need to go into each one. We pick out the ones we've picked and we say why we've picked them, and hopefully it's self-evident why a lot of the other ones we haven't, based on some of the criteria that Jeff discussed, which are, we prioritize them based on the following. 1, we had to allocate circa 200 houses. 2, you told us that your preference was for brownfield. 3, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Adrian, if we could set up a Google Drive, I will pick the first 10 that we do, and we see how we get on with those. And I think what would be useful is if you send the Google Drive link to all of us on the call, and then Harold, I'll leave it to you to recommend which of the volunteers you think should be feeding back. And I agree, it probably should be Jonathan, Ray, and Matthew, given what we're asking, right? The areas of expertise required. Is that okay?
Yep.
Great. Super.
John, sorry. I think when I see Ray, I'd probably rather do it with him in about 2 meetings.
Yeah.
I think that will be easier. So if I mean, it won't be for a little while, but it'd be useful for me if I could just have 2 blocks to go through with him.
What, of online time?
No. Sorry, to just have access to them as you now have them, so I can go through them with him.
Yeah. Look,
I've got them all, not just the first 10 by the time I see them.
I will zip these and send to everyone. Or in fact, what I'll do is, which is even easier, I will forward you the email from Hannah Barter.
Excellent.
All attached to it. So you all have them.
So do I still need to set up a Google Drive in that case?
Yeah, I think for commenting. Yeah.
Or Dropbox would be easier for me, but if you want to use Google.
No, I'm talking about if we're going to have lots of people filling in the same forms, we can't end up with 10 versions of it. So we have a single version on Google Drive. People go in, update it, come out, and in the next, somebody else can go in at their own leisure and do it. What it means, Harold, practically is if you're going to get the feedback offline, we just have to work out how to get it online.
So I know which idiot will be putting it back online. I know exactly which idiot will be putting it back online. Don't worry about that.
What I'd say, Harold, is that we do have access to resource. So we can't.
Oh, well, if I could print them all off, make notes that people can read, and then they could be put in, that would be a massive reduction in the workload for me. If that's possible, that would be really helpful, John.
What we've got is we've got administrative support from Hannah Barter,
Right.
And that's why it's important. It's important we're not outsourcing the thinking,
Yes.
decision making, but we can certainly outsource typing things up, which is what they've done so far. They've typed up the basic information.
Okay. Well, I'll work out a way of doing it, John. But it would be great not to have to put it back into the forms. I'll print them off and then
Print them off, write on it, bring it into to Adrian, and she'll scan them, and we'll email them to Hannah Barter.
Yeah, I
And
think
actually,
that would be a lot less work for me if that's possible, John. That'd be very
yeah, and that actually gives them to test what we've written in terms of it's in the right speak.
yes.
So they're putting it in the right wording to hit the spot.
Yeah. Okay, great. We've got about two more agenda items, I believe. Let me have a quick look. We've got local.
Should we do that terms of reference?
Yes, do the terms of reference quickly, and I am hoping we can finish in the next 10-15 minutes. So,
Please.
yes.
Yeah.
At least, yeah, that's something we all agree on. Let's do that. Let's finish in the next 10 minutes.
Adrienne, nothing's changed on the terms of reference, has it?
No,
No, it just has to be agreed every
It's the
time.
date that we're meeting. I think I've changed that. I think that was about it.
Yeah.
I
So I propose then that we adopt the terms of reference, because they haven't been changed since we last agreed them, have they?
I think I changed it to the third Monday and a bit about COVID, and I think that was all I changed.
Okay.
What am I going to do on the third Monday of every month when this is all over?
There'd be something.
I should be bereft.
We'll set up a third Monday club
Yeah, yeah,
to the pub, right?
yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, obviously, look, these have been circulated. I think you've all read them.
Yeah.
Jeff, you're proposing we vote to accept.
Yeah. Then
Yeah.
Second.
Chris is second. Can we vote to accept the terms of reference for this coming year?
This last year, John.
Last year. Great.
This last year. Yeah.
Yeah. Super. Thank you. Look, I think it's important to say that clearly looking at, you know, a file full of nearly 50 bits of paper to fill in is quite onerous, but actually, you know, we've come a huge way, and actually largely when these tasks are done, we're 80% there. So don't despair, as I've been. Okay, so next item on the agenda is local green spaces. Adrian, I don't know if there's, I know you've been busy updating the LGS assessment forms. Is there any brief update on LGS?
No, I typed them up following our field visits with Matthew and yourself and Chris, which I've sent over. I haven't heard back from Chris yet if he's happy or if we need to change anything.
I will have a look at that later, Adrienne.
Yeah.
Sorry, I haven't got around to it yet.
That's all right.
You sent it on Thursday, didn't you? Sorry,
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to look.
Yeah, we're a bit delayed doing it. So yeah, and then it's the next stage, which I thought we had to do a pre-consultation on, but we'll check that with Hannah again.
I think based on the conversation earlier, personally, I think if we can do the consultation before the exhibitions, I think you're right. Just get do the 3-week consultation, publish them, get them out there, and then the decision's made.
Okay.
Would be my suggestion.
I agree.
Yeah. And super. Okay, great. That's LGS. That's it. And last but not least, is just an update on policy development.
So I've got 2 sets of policy comments, inputs that I need to consolidate, and one outstanding meeting with Ray. So Ray and I did meet for about an hour, and only got about halfway through his comments before I had to leave. And then we were supposed to meet last weekend, but I hurt my back playing football foolishly. So I need to set up another meeting with Ray. I tried to call him today, but couldn't get through. So I'll try and do that in the next sort of 3 or 4 days. So I'm hoping by the end of the week I'll have had that consolidated. It's been a slightly more difficult task than or more timely task than I thought it would take, but I hope we'll have all of the volunteers' comments. Interestingly, I don't think I've had, possibly wasn't expecting any comments from the following people. So you, John, I don't think have sent me any policy.
Yeah, so rightly or wrongly, Chris, what I was hoping to do would be to comment on the consolidated comments.
Okay, cool. I'm happy to do that. And I think I haven't seen anything from Adrienne, and I assume she might want to do the same. And last but not least, I don't think I've had any comments from Tim Stoner. I think everyone else in the list.
I think Tim might be taking the view, Chris, that Chris Wright is speaking for them, that they seem to be working as a pair.
And I think I've got Chris's.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Chris,
In which case,
sorry, Chris, when you speak with Ray, could you just ask him to talk to you about the Heritage England dimension to this and when he thinks we should consult with
so
them?
he did tell me that actually.
We don't want to be tripped up at the end on this.
No, he did tell me that, and we've got some notes. I've got some notes.
Chris, after their willingness expressed to you and I in Oxford that they would really like to engage with us early on,
Yeah.
it would be great to give them the opportunity. I can't remember the name of that chap. Can you?
They'll all have changed roles by now anyway, probably.
Yeah,
There's another bunch of redundancies.
Yeah, I think it'd be worth. So I did have a chance to speak to Ray about that. Funnily enough,
Well, just pick it up again, Chris, when you talk to him, and I think the sooner we do it, the better, because it does take them time, and we could get tripped up by that, knock us right off our timetable.
And I think realistically, Harold, there's probably only one or two sites which.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's not a big thing. We just need to remember. Well, it's the sites around the creek and probably the farm that we just talked about will be the difficult ones.
Yeah.
And I've actually picked up the notes from Ray now. Found them eventually, and basically the appraisals haven't been done on the conservation areas, which is why what Swale is sitting on, which is why it's problematic, Hannah felt, which is why it's worth getting individuals' views. And specifically, I mean, Ray, I'm sure everyone knows, is a mine of useful information, but his view about the sort of preserving and enhancing the character related to maps and considerations from the 1860s. So it's and you've already seen that, I should think, Harold. Getting back to the policy document, I think we'll have a consolidated view for me by the end of the week. John should be out of met Ray by then, and I've only got a couple to work in, so we're in pretty good shape, I think.
Yeah.
Is there much conflict between what the volunteers were saying, Chris, or is something coherent coming out?
Yeah, I mean, so it varies. Nothing wildly conflicting in any of it, really. Some of it I will admit to just doing it as a ministerial task and making sure that it's mapped to the documents. But the stuff I've gone through with Ray, which I thought might be most, as you know, I've paid most attention to, is not really wildly conflicting at all. He's pretty confident. But then, so yeah, nothing.
So we're in good shape then, I would guess, from that.
Yeah, but then I think it will go back to Hannah, and Hannah will work
it all up.
I guess. Yeah.
Just one thing as well, FYI. I sent Trevor Payne a piece on footpaths. I think, as you know, Trevor is the chair of Faversham Footpaths Group, and he emailed me asking if he could feedback or provide any feedback or input into footpaths.
So you said no, I assume.
Yeah, of course. No, and I think also Councillor Saunders, I think, is part of that group or part of that group.
Yes.
Board. So yeah. So I haven't got any back yet, but again, I'll put it into my feedback that we'll put it on. So just to, you know, that's another important constituency. I think we've got some feedback on.
Just Chris, did you get feedback from David, by the way?
David Melville.
Yeah.
I fairly sure I had
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I remember seeing it, Chris. It was
Oh,
quite.
that's fine. It's
quite-
just David's been away a bit, and I wanted just to be sure that he had come back to you. That's
It
fine.
was quite early on, and it was very little. if I
Actually, yeah, no, I did, but his was incorporated into something that Matthew had already added, and I think Jeff had already added. So, yeah, it was part of a group lot, which was quite helpful.
Okay, great. So this time next month we'll have nailed local green spaces, site allocations, and policies. We're almost there. Great.
Yeah,
John,
the only
thank
thing-
you so much for the email.
And I know you wanted to finish this early, John, but the other thing that strikes me is we probably need to make sure we have a meeting with Jill, Pete,
Yeah.
and think about how we engage them and the timeline for them so that they can make sure they've got the time and resource.
Yeah, just on that actually, because I am aware, and actually I'm even more aware because I couldn't make the call on Friday. Normally I can make them. That the calls with Jill, Pete are on Friday mornings, and I know that's quite difficult for many of you to attend. Is there another time that we could go back? Because you're absolutely right, Chris. I think as we get nearer to the end, we need to speak more rather than less. Is there a time that would?
I think, well, John, while it is true that we may need to speak more rather than less, it may well need to be fewer of us because the issues now are down to timetable, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because in my diary, they're always appearing as cancelled now. So I've assumed that they were cancelled or all cancelled.
The last one was cancelled last Friday, as far as I'm aware, Adrian. Is that
I don't
right?
think it was ever scheduled last Friday. I
And
only,
in the one on the 2nd of July in my diary, it says cancelled as well.
Well, the 2nd of July wouldn't have been with them.
Well, I've got one in my diary.
I had the 18th of June, but I spoke with Adrienne and we hadn't officially got it into their diaries. So we need to set something up that fits.
oh yeah, the one on the 2nd of July was an invite for Aaron, it seems. I think Aaron cancelled them, but we haven't had those for a long time on Teams. I've been sending them on a monthly basis.
Friday's as good a day for me as any, John, and given we're kind of at a pivotal point, I think, or soon to be at a very pivotal point, I think it's worth just certainly me trying to make the space and time for them.
Yeah, I think, Chris, it would be, and to Harold's point, not everyone needs to be in every call, given that I kind of fight like the LGS. Without volunteering, you've become the timetable guy. So I think it would be useful if we could schedule a meeting that suits you, to make sure you're at it.
I'll try.
Chris, I wonder actually, I'm trying to be helpful again. I wonder whether we need to meet monthly or whether you need to just look at the timetable and work out when you need the meetings with them and set them up then. So that at the right times for us rather than just every month as it has been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adrian, I think it would be useful if you could join me on those meetings,
Sure.
if for no other reason than to make sure that I pass around the actions that come out of it, or we just
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, really helpful, thank you. Second pair of eyes would be great. Super, happy to finish.
Great, thank you. Any other business before we finish for the evening?
That's been quite a solid session, hasn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I think the next time, hopefully, at least some of us will see each other. Adrian, you're going to try to arrange a meeting in a couple of weeks' time, face to face, in Town Hall.
Just as
For the exhibition planning, yeah.
John, just as an aside, because I'm conscious I've got away quite well with some of this tonight, that really what we were talking about with developing the vision that goes with what Hannah's writing on the policies.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any role that I could play liaising with her on the coordination of the vision so that I'm taking a bit of the strain off you and
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah,
I'm
so
happy to do that and liaise with Hannah directly
that
to
would
make sure we join that up.
I kind of feel the same because I don't feel like I'm pulling my weight adequately in the group. So if there's really anything anyone can pass my way, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, well, you know, equally, I'm aware that other people have other commitments and other committees and working groups they sit on, so it's absolutely fine. But
Sure.
Jeff, the one thing the stage we haven't got to, but it sounds exactly the stage that you're talking about is at the minute we're talking about separate components, you know, housing site allocation,
Yeah.
local green space, drawing that all together into a singular document that flows and has
Yeah,
joining writing and,
yeah,
and preambles and introductions and visions and all that has to be done. And I think if you when that time comes, which maybe the time is to start it, I don't know.
Yeah.
Very grateful if you'd lead on it.
maybe if I mail Hannah, copy you and Adrienne in so the left hand knows what the right hand's doing.
Yeah.
So that we can be advised by Hannah how to feed this in so that it doesn't disrupt or derail anything that's happening now, but it's complementary to what is going on rather than disruptive.
Yeah, one of the things we talked, I'm aware we're running more time, but one of the things we talked about very early, and we never actually did it, probably because it was the wrong time to do it, was to set up a big template. You know, this is chapter 2, this is where this slots in, this is chapter 3. Doing that kind of outline, Jeff, I think would be the first step in doing that. And I think if you can liaise with Hannah and work out how to take that forward, that would be super.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that. And I say I'll keep you and Adrienne copied in so that you know exactly what is going on. And if you want to have a chip in, then I'll take that on board and make sure we get to where we want to be.
Yeah, and I think Hannah P would only be too keen to help you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that does join up some of the bigger stuff that is happening with what Hannah's doing with Swale and so on. So we'll try and join all that up. We worked all right, Hannah, on the health stuff, didn't we?
Yeah, the trouble is all that's going in the town plan, Jeff.
Yeah. Okay, guys, it's 20 to 9.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of you haven't had dinner yet, so
No. Yay.
No, thanks a lot,
Cheers.
John.
thanks everyone.
See you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.